So I want to welcome everybody. This is Pete Erickson with MoDev. Thank you so much. We have a wonderful partnership with our friends at the National Retail Federation. We developed this Agentic AI series in partnership with NRF that included an Agentic AI stage at the NRF Big Show, some Agentic AI roundtables, and this webinar series. And we're so proud to be hosting our friends at Ping Identity today. When it comes to agentic AI, it's interesting to watch this market evolve and just how quickly it's evolved over the past few years. We've sort of seen this coming for many years now, but when agentic AI sort of became the term, it made sense. And the truth is, we're entering into an era where agents are acting on our behalf, or they're acting, within a tech stack, doing any number of tasks on the back end, on the front end. And, we are entering into an era where agents are going to be able to do things for us. So be able to go shopping for us and carry out transactions. And if that's the case, if we have agents that are working on our behalf, well, that introduces a whole bunch of complexity into the equation. And that is what today's webinar is really all about. Ping Identity is on the forefront of this, and our speaker today is somebody who's on the very forefront of this new agentic driven era of commerce. So I am very proud to welcome Maya Agranovich Scott. She is a senior solutions manager with Ping Identity, and Maya is a senior product and solutions manager that looks at everything across the retail spectrum, including fraud, authenticity, and how agents are being deployed. She has a background in vertical solutions as well as fraud prevention. She's passionate about leveraging the power of identity to help enterprises deliver exceptional customer experiences that are simultaneously secure and seamless. Um, Before I hand it over to Maya, just a couple of housekeeping items. One is we're going to push out three poll questions. And Maya, we will push one out on, I think, your second slide. We'll push one out in the middle of the presentation, and then we'll push one out towards the end. Please use the question icon at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. We're going to save those questions for and we'll have a chance to get to those questions and get into some dialogue with you all. This webinar is being recorded and it will be made available to everybody post-event, both in an email with a direct link, but we'll also put it on our YouTube channel. So very excited about today's topic because it's so spot on with where we are and just how quickly this agentic AI market is moving. With that said, I want to turn it over to our guest speaker. Maya, please take it from here. Look forward to the presentation.
Thanks so much, Peter. Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you for the first time if you've never seen me before. My name is Maya Agranovich Scott. I wonder if I might have run into some of you at NRF Protect last year, so give me a shout in the chat. But as Peter says, I'm with Ping Identity. We are an identity security provider who is currently very actively developing solutions in the agentic AI space. And there's a lot of really interesting things going on in the agentic AI space when it comes specifically to retail and commerce. So today we're going to focus in on the new and emerging agentic channel and how it creates both opportunities and a lot of new threats for retail organizations. We'll talk about the different types of agents that you might be deploying and that you might be seeing, and how both customer experience and the internet itself are both changing due to the emergence of this agentic channel. And then at the end, I'll give you some best practices and hopefully take some questions around this topic. So let's begin with a bold statement. Your next multi-million dollar customer might be an AI agent acting on behalf of a human customer. We've been in a very rapid evolution of AI technology since the breakthrough of ChatGPT in 2022. And then ChatGPT Operator came around in early 2025. And then subsequently, we've had all sorts of announcements around agentic commerce protocol and other types of protocols that allow agents to interact with e-commerce systems. And make no mistake about this. We are moving into a world where consumers are being represented by their AI agents. We've got a lot of AI agents acting on behalf of consumers now. For example, like ChatGPT operator. And what is really concerning about this is a lot of times organizations may not even know that this is happening. But in this kind of new world of the agentic channel, as consumers engage with these agentic AI solutions, consumers can add this layer of intelligence and kind of ease of use to their experience and save a lot of time. And so in the future, your next big revenue milestone might actually come from AI. So the emergence of the agentic AI market, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, has really grown incredibly fast, right? Agentic AI was valued at about $5 billion in 2024. We're looking at almost $48 billion by 2030. So it's essentially doubling in value every 2 years. A couple of additional statistics, right? Gartner has said that by 2029, around 80% of common customer service issues and queries can be resolved without human intervention. And so we are seeing a lot more applications of agentic AI across every type of system. So when we look at this from a search standpoint, we're already seeing a massive impact on search volumes from LLMs, and adoption is happening really rapidly and is going to continue to accelerate, which has significant implications for both business and technology. So when we talk about securing the agentic era, we've got about 5.6 billion connected people today. There's an average of 255 accounts per person, and the number of agents per person is going to be around 80 to 1 pretty soon, right? So we've got a lot of agents on the internet. You see some of those mean bots on the bottom. There's not every agent is a good agent, right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit too. And agents are going to be shopping. So retailers can't afford to leave these users and the literal trillions of dollars or literal trillions of potential transactions that they will make behind. There are two sides to every coin. So as AI agents apply to commerce and we see the new agentic channel, we are going to need new ways to manage and maintain relationships with customers. It also has to do with the experience for the agentic channel and the decisions that agents will make based on inputs from customers and inputs from you, the retailer, to determine whether agents can make a purchase, and ultimately will drive customers to decide who they are going to shop with. So in an ideal scenario, right, if they are trying to shop via the agentic channel and you have a good, easy, and secure experience for them, perhaps they will make the purchase with you, and then you have hopefully caught a customer who will come back and make subsequent purchases. And as you know, loyalty is made at about 3 purchases, right? After the first purchase, the customer has about a 26% chance of coming back. But after they've made 3 purchases with you, the likelihood of a repeat purchase goes up to over 60%. So it's really important to create those avenues for those customers to be able to transact with you and to entice them to come back. But then on the flip side, we have a lot of new risk introduced. Agents are a new form of non-human identity. They require really strong controls to limit security risk. And it's going to be very important to understand who is liable for agent actions. It's going to be very important to govern these agents as they interact with your systems. And it's going to be critical to ensure that we are authorizing their actions appropriately.
Hey, Maya, I would like to recommend that we push the first poll question out if that's okay.
Oh, sure, please.
Yeah, Jess, go ahead and push
Yep.
that first poll question. What is your biggest concern about AI-driven commerce? There's four choices there. Kind of what is it? Pick what is like the what comes top of mind as your biggest concern area. Let's see what our results are.
I suspect I know the answer, but it'll be interesting to see what folks on the call have to say. I think I sped right through where this was supposed to happen. I'm
That's
sorry. I get so
okay. That's
excited
okay.
about the topic. I just
Hey, no,
went.
you're doing great. It's a great presentation. I just wanted to get this poll question pushed out. Folks can take the poll. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting some good responses here. We've got customer trust at 40%, fraud prevention at 30%. Is that what you would have thought, Maya?
I would have thought data security would be higher, actually.
That one's close
Um,
behind 25%.
yeah. But in all honesty, all four of these are going to be massively impacted if agentic AI is not implemented in an intelligent way. So there's no wrong answer to this poll at all.
There it is.
Yep. So I'm
Well,
seeing
data security
customer
is right
trust
there.
up really high, fraud, and then data security, and then privacy a little bit lower on the stack. And I think the privacy question is going to become a lot more challenging as certain geographies push forward regulations around this, right? Because depending on where you are operating and which region you are operating in, you may be subject to more or less privacy regulations. And there are a lot of data privacy implications of agentic AI. But customer trust is sort of the bread and butter of the retailer, right? If your customers don't trust you, then they're not going to come back to make that second and third and fifth and 15th
Huge.
purchase. Yeah,
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking a moment to take the poll. We'll go on with the presentation. Thank you, Maya.
absolutely. We'll come back to this because we're going to talk about all of these a little bit. All right, but let's talk a little bit about the UI of the internet and how it's changing. We're going from static human navigated pages toward more dynamic AI powered and immersive online experiences. And AI is really driving these changes. It's making interfaces more conversational, more personalized, and more seamlessly integrated. So historically, you would see users searching based on terms and then digging through pages of results of human created content. So now we're sort of moving towards answer engines where information is searched and condensed and then summarized by LLMs with much more precision. And this is really changing the ways in which users interact with the internet. They can be much more specific about what exactly they're looking for and get much more precise results. And we're moving towards this idea of outcome engines where intent leads directly into action. So let's give you an example. Perhaps I'm searching for a vacation destination, someplace sunny. It was a low of -30 here yesterday. It is quite cold. Perhaps somewhere I can go to the beach, right? But as I'm searching for a vacation destination, what is my real end goal? Is it to look through pages of potential destinations? Or is it to book a vacation, the vacation of my dreams, quickly and seamlessly and as soon as possible and get on that plane and go to that sunny destination and put my feet in the sand, right? So if the goal is to book the vacation, then moving towards this outcome-based engine is going to create a better customer experience for me. And this is the part that Agentic is ultimately going to enable and where the internet is moving. So let's dissect that vacation journey example just a little further as it relates to customer experience. Um, all of the efforts to improve experience online have largely been done within corporate silos, by which I mean it's every organization is optimizing their own customer experience within their own channels. But if I only had to work with one organization as a consumer, that would be a lot easier for me, right? But obviously, the reality is that to complete any one customer journey, so here we go. I'm wanting to go on a vacation. There's going to be a lot of apps and a lot of channels within each app. Let's talk through. So let's start with I want to get inspired. I might gain inspiration from friends, or from family, or I might go scroll reels on Instagram or go to YouTube, go to Pinterest, etc. Each of those applications have their own authentication and experience and way for me to save those inspirations so that I can make decisions about where I want to go. Let's say I've picked a destination. Now I have to research my trip. Maybe I'm using Google or TripAdvisor or travel blogs or, other sites. And again, each one of those has their own experience. Then I start to shop. I'm using travel sites to shop now. Then I'm beginning to prepare for my trip. So maybe I've got my airline app, lounge access app, whatever it is that I need in order to actually take the action of going on the trip. When I take my trip, I get on my plane, I get to my sunny destination. Now I'm checking into my hotel with my hotel app. That's another app. Now I am reviewing the trip on TripAdvisor. And then at the end, maybe we're going full circle and I'm sharing photos with friends and family on some sort of social media. So you get the point. You're working across many different apps here. But this is a pretty complicated user journey, and it gets more complicated with every channel that each app uses. So maybe for one of these, I'm interacting with the website. For another, I've got an app and email, SMS. Sometimes there's a brick and mortar component, right? And in the identity world, I'm jumping across channels frequently. Sometimes I'm interacting with the same vendor across multiple channels, even when it's just one vendor. So that omni-channel experience, and I'm switching between my mobile device and my laptop where I'm going into a brick and mortar location. And in the end, the proliferation of apps from many organizations and this, complexity of channels across organizations has led to an erosion of customer experience and unwanted friction. But it poses really a generational opportunity for improvement. Because what if you had your trusty sidekick, your trusty friend in your pocket that is going to help you navigate all of this and interface across all of those different things? And that is what the Agentic channel is hopefully eventually going to do. So, in the future, as we look at the way that customers interact with different retailers and with different businesses as a whole, Agentic AI is really going to redefine the omni-channel experience by adding a new fifth channel. And for all of the reasons we just discussed, right, collapsing those other channels where it's appropriate, the ability to get things done across multiple apps and organizations, ultimately saving customers time and money, customers themselves are going to drive the emergence of this new channel in their drive for an easier, smoother experience. That's not to say that the existing channels that we know and love will disappear. They will not, right? I remember back 15, even maybe 10 years ago, we were talking about how brick and mortar was dead. Long live brick and mortar, right? People still like it. People still shop brick and mortar. They're always going to shop brick and mortar. People will shop via web. People will shop via app. But the agentic channel is going to emerge as another key way in which customers interact with brands. So as we have this new channel, we have to figure out its rules that we are going to push forward and that customers are going to push for and adopt. And we need to consider how this will extend the omni-channel experience customers are already having, and also the new types of interactions that will evolve. So let's talk about how retailers can make this channel real, profitable, and secure, because that's the really big question. And I think before we go into this, we have the next poll question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
So
We're
yes,
gonna,
go ahead and
yep.
push out the next poll
Okay.
question. That would be
Look at
great.
me, I remembered this time. I remembered where it
Hey,
was.
great job. Great job.
Okay, here I come.
How confident are you that your current identity systems could support agent-to-agent transactions? Wow,
Huh.
we are here. We're in this new era.
Where
Agent to
we
agent.
have come here, whether or not we are ready for it, right? And
Right.
I will add some color while we wait for answers to roll in to this question. The chain of responsibility gets incredibly murky when you get to a point of agents talking to agents. And that is one of the areas where organizations really struggle with the visibility that they need to be, fully auditable and to ensure that they have the proper protocols in place. And
Mhm.
identity is really going to be very, very central to that, right? So I see a few that are very confident. I am tremendously happy for you. Folks that are somewhat confident, primarily not confident, and then a lot of unsures. So the good news is you're about where the market is. The vast majority of organizations have not figured this out yet. We have a lot of agentic AI and just AI in general deployments that fail, right? The number of deployments that actually do not successfully go through to full completion and full adoption is over 90%. And there's a lot of reasons that this happens. There's a lack of alignment, there's a lack of understanding of the scope. Security considerations are a really big one. There are many, many pieces that go into ensuring that an AI deployment is successful. And identity is at the core of everything that you are going to be allowing agents to do or not do inside of your organizational systems. So let me explain by backing up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about agents and how they behave and how they reason. So to get smart, to actually be able to do the things that you want them to do, AI agents need interactivity. And this is where identity comes in. It brings up a lot of new identity challenges when a user is delegating access to an agent, and now an agent, as the delegate of the user, is accessing your systems, right? So how does the user appropriately delegate their permissions to an agent so that your system can still track who is at the core of this interaction? How do we represent an agent identity in our IAM systems? Are we allowing agents to simply use human credentials? Spoiler, the answer is no, right? That is an extremely unsafe way to do it. A recent Gartner report said that organizations that allow this, that allow credential sharing, are going to see at least a tripling in their ATO rates. This is not a safe way to do it. So how do we do it instead if we're not going to do that? And then how do we handle authentication and authorization of these agents against different forms of services? Primarily APIs, but maybe they're interacting with other things like databases, websites, if it's a computer using agent, or even other agents, right? Other agents that you may have deployed internally. When we are delegating authority to these agents, how do we introduce approval mechanisms to assure that humans are appropriately involved for sensitive actions? And I'm not going to go into a lot of details here, but you're going to hear about things like MCP, right? Model Context Protocol, A to A, agent to agent, which are standardizing how agents interact with services and how they interact with each other. So the next piece that I think is really important to talk about is we need to start classifying the agents that are interacting with systems and figuring out what type of agent we're dealing with so that we can appropriately deal with that agent's access to services. So Ping and the industry as a whole, we're all working on paradigms to understand the boundaries in which agents are acting in order to help define the use cases where identity and security controls should be put in place. So some of these boundaries include ownership, right? Is the agent managed by your organization? For example, a chatbot that you deploy to serve your customers. Or is it a personal agent? For example, the customer has an instance of ChatGPT Pro on their phone and they have sent it out to do something on their behalf and it is accessing your system, right? So ownership first. Is it managed or is it personal? Next, how is it interacting with your systems? So is it interacting via API, which includes MCP servers, or is it an agent that can interact directly with the web GUI, a computer using agent like Operator that is coming on your website the same way a human might? Next, we talk about what the level of supervision is, right? Is it a human in command scenario where there is a human actively chatting with the agent as it is completing its actions, and every single action is a back and forth interaction with a human? Is it semi-supervised? So we have a human in the loop or a human on the loop scenario where the agent is acting autonomously for chunks of time and coming back to get approvals from the human at points where it is considered appropriate? Or is it mostly unsupervised, right? Is the agent almost entirely autonomous and acting in systems without really any supervision at all? And then next, we talk about the identity of the agent, right? So when you think about how the agent is identified in your systems, does the agent have its own account? So do you have an agent with its own set of credentials, its own account, and its own identity in the system? Or is it an agent that will only ever act on behalf of a user? And so when you're looking at these four areas of general criteria and you're splitting agents by type, you sort of end up with three very broad general categories, right? Imperfect, but this is the simplest way we found of condensing them down. First, we have the personal agent, this idea of your agent works for you, right? You, the customer. So especially in the context of consumer-facing use cases, you're really seeing that new channel. We can provide opportunities for tremendous, revenue gains and other things when the customer using their personal instance of whatever AI agent they have on their phone is leveraging the shopping agent, a travel agent, an investment agent, and the enterprise doesn't manage it, but the agent is coming to the enterprise's digital front door and trying to do something on behalf of the customer. So there's a lot of control problems here, and there's very specific issues that need to be addressed. Um, in order to ensure that the personal agent that you did not create and that you do not manage is able to interact safely with your system. And then we have two different types of managed agents, right? We have digital assistants, this idea of our agent works for you. The best example of this is something like a chatbot. So it is your agent, you, the retailer, the organization, but it is working for individuals. It is working for individual consumers, if it's a customer support agent, or maybe it's even working for individual employees if it's an internal facing chatbot. And then finally, we have the idea of the mostly autonomous digital worker. It is an agent that's not necessarily not interacting with users, but they have their own set of privileges and they perform a variety of tasks and they are not actively interfacing with a human while they do that. And so here you've got all sorts of life cycle management questions, monitoring how these agents are performing without actively having supervision, ensuring that there are controls in place for situations where these agents might be misbehaving for whatever reason. But when we're talking about commerce and retail use cases, we're really looking at these left two use cases, right? So in this case, the personal agent might be someone's personal instance of ChatGPT or Gemini that they ask to make a purchase on their behalf. There are commerce protocols coming out now, right? You might have heard about the Agentic commerce protocol from OpenAI and Stripe. It's live in ChatGPT now, integrated so far with Etsy, but going out to all Shopify merchants eventually, where the customer can shop fully within their ChatGPT instance, never going to the retailer's website at all. And more recently, we've seen the agent payments protocol from Google, which is also a different kind of take on how to allow customers to shop via the agentic channel without necessarily hitting the retailer's website. And then on the digital assistant side, it's basically your organizational chatbot. Customers can use this to interact with you. It can recommend products. It can even make purchases on customers' behalf by accessing their accounts with your organization if it gets appropriate delegated permissions. So based on these agent types, there's a lot of new interaction types that are emerging. The agentic channel comes with a new opportunity to rebalance and optimize the customer experience. Personal agents will interact with digital assistants like chatbots in order to get things done. So here's where we see things like the agent-to-agent protocol use. Personal agents might also need to interact with enterprise human support as an escalation path if they can't get things done by working with a digital assistant. And then, of course, end customers will continue to interact with both digital assistants and humans. And we have this new opportunity to optimize experience across all of these interactions. For example, an end customer might prefer to use a personal agent for certain activities, but they might still prefer a human interaction for others. And the choice of which interaction makes the most sense is going to be driven by the optimal customer experience across their journey. As in any other area where you're seeing value transacted, you need to understand the identity on both sides in order to trust those transactions. So what agent is interacting with your system? Who is the human behind the agent? Which systems is it touching? Which internal agents or employees is it interacting with? And who are all of the links in the chain that ultimately lead to whatever the transaction happens to be? Identity is obviously key to that, right? If we don't know who, then all of this breaks down. None of this works if we don't understand who is acting. All right, so we've talked a lot so far about how this revolution makes the end customer's life a lot easier. But there are a lot of opportunities for organizations. We can really improve customer experiences by meeting customers where they are as they adopt the use of agents. It is possible to differentiate by providing both agents and users a safe, secure, and frictionless experience to interact with your brand. But of course, you've also got this problem of brand disintermediation that is brought up by personal agents. If it's only the agent that the brand is interacting with, the brand might never get the opportunity to create a long-term relationship with the ultimate human budget holder, which is the opposite of what you want. So you need to understand and establish that relationship between a personal agent and its human owner's identity so that you can bridge that gap and actually grow loyalty with that human customer. Brands are going to need to work even harder, unfortunately, to establish these ongoing relationships with human consumers across every channel that the customer uses, which now will include the agentic channel. And at the same time, agents are going to bring new customers to organizations that never would have found them otherwise. They're going to raise your discoverability. Maybe the perfect product might have been on page 500 of a Google search, but now, through an agent, when the customer is very specific about what it is that they want, it is the number one result, and you acquire a new customer. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got agentic chatbots acting autonomously or semi-autonomously for your organization. You can really achieve efficiency in customer service that wasn't possible before. Remember that stat from earlier. We're thinking that by 2029, with a good agentic AI deployment on your side, about 80% of common issues can be resolved with that autonomous agent without needing to involve a human support person. So, as these enterprise agents act on behalf of your customers, but within your corporate boundary to get things done for the person that they are talking to, you need to give them access to services that only humans could access before. So, the very long story short is that many organizations are already at least partially down this path on the chatbot side as well as the personal agent side. And those that are going to get there faster are going to have a competitive advantage in the market as this channel continues to grow. At Ping, we believe that you can't have one without the other, right? We need to enable the agentic channel. We really need to enable the growth of this new channel of revenue and this new way of interacting with customers. But it's critical to secure agents across the identity lifecycle. So let's talk a little bit about how we do that. When we think about identity for AI and the requirements from like a feature function perspective, you're going to see some very familiar words. You want to identify, recognize, onboard, register, authenticate, authorize, manage the lifecycle of, govern, and monitor agents. If this sounds really familiar, it's because it's what you do with human identities now. So AI agents are really just another identity types. They're like a workforce identity or an employee identity, a customer identity, a partner identity. It's another type of identity, and it has some unique aspects that we need to manage. And so many of the same principles that we've used historically for human identity can also apply to agents, and so does the functionality, as long as we build these identity systems to understand that we are dealing with a new identity type that doesn't behave or think like a human, but at the same time is not the type of non-thinking machine identity that we've seen in the past. As we're moving into the agentic future, there are some things from an identity standpoint that we really need to keep in mind. We need to be able to recognize agents, right? So when I said earlier that organizations have agents accessing their systems right now and they might not even know it, here's what I mean. A good bot detection solution might be able to shut down an agent that is coming in with human credentials, but agents can act human enough to fool a lot of bot detection. So you might be seeing agents coming in with human credentials that the human principal has foolishly granted them and interacting with systems. So you need to recognize when an agent is hitting your systems, and traditional bot detection can fall kind of short. We need to know when that agent's at our door versus a human because they require completely different treatment from an identity standpoint. We need to be able to classify the types of agents. Do we know whether it's a personal agent or is it an internal agent like a digital assistant or a digital worker? Because those require different treatment. And we need to be able to provide those agents with identities or with scoped delegated access tokens where they can act on behalf of the human user. It's really critical to use delegation and not impersonation for agent access. So, for example, you should never have a human giving an agent their credentials. to log in to do things directly. We need some way for it to act on behalf of the user, or in situations where it really should have its own credentials because it acts autonomously, then it should have its own set of credentials. This can be really dangerous from security monitoring and logging standpoint if you don't get that right. The next piece that is critically important is authorizing agent activity. It's really important to enforce least privilege, scope down what the agent can do to the least amount possible, and ensure that when it gains access to resources, you grant it access just in time to complete the task, and then that access is immediately revoked. So we're talking about that idea of ephemeral access. So they can't access on behalf of that user in perpetuity. We also need to think about the different permissions and consents based on the preferences of the human owner so that the human has some control over what the agent can see and do. And then you also, as the organization, should be able to put in some controls and constraints around what agents are allowed to see and do within the corporate boundary. And then finally, we need a way to reach out of band to the human principal for consent and approval for certain tasks, like, for example, a high value transaction. And then all of this agent behavior and all of these relationships with humans need to be logged and auditable so that when an action is performed by an agent, we need to be able to know who the human principal was, whether or not human approval was sought and received, and what the ultimate outcome was. So, to sum it up, if we kind of take a step back, the phases of the agent identity journey can be related to the customer journey. We need to identify and recognize agents so that we can give them proper treatment. We need to onboard them appropriately. We need to register the agent along with their human association and ensure that we tie them back to their human principal or custodian in the case of an agent that is mostly autonomous. We need to be able to manage their life cycle, authenticate and authorize them, govern them, and monitor their activity so that if something goes wrong, we know and we are able to step in quickly because they act at machine speed, so you don't have time to think about it. So, finally, to summarize, we've touched on a lot of topics at a very high level today. We've been more focused on the agentic channel on this presentation, but we at Ping overall focus on all three of these key areas. And so the goals of agentic identity that we are trying to help with is this idea of engaging the agentic channel, giving organizations like yours the ability to recognize those agents, relate them back to humans, and then deploy agents to serve your customers for better customer experiences. To secure the autonomous workforce, which might include those customer service agents because they are digital workers in a sense, being able to do discovery, lifecycle management, security, and governance for those digital worker agents. And then finally, because my background is in fraud, there's going to be a lot of new attacks that come through this channel, and that's going to come through malicious AI. And so we need to always have a thought towards protecting against adversarial AI, all sorts of AI-based attacks that are going to come out of this broadening of the way in which customers interact with organizations. And I believe we have one more and final poll question. Yep, here we are.
Right. So which area will you prioritize first for agentic security readiness?
Yeah, and thanks everyone for taking the poll. I want to add that if you've got questions, use the Q&A button
Yes.
down at the bottom of Zoom, and we can.
Yeah, we've got some time, so let's talk. I've been talking at an incredibly high level about a lot of different concepts. I sort of touched on a lot of different places here, so I'd love to dig deeper on any of this if you have an interest.
Yeah, I think there was a question from Anil. I think it was specific to Microsoft. I'm going to go back up there and see if I can find it.
I was going to say we're sharing the results of the poll as well if you want to look at those.
I'm actually thrilled to see authentication top this because I do believe that that is going to be the most critical thing. I think that if we can't appropriately authenticate agents, either as themselves or as delegates, then all of the rest of this does not work. I think these are all important. And I also think that authentication is the baseline table stakes thing that you got to get right. before any of the rest of this is going to function the way you want it to. All right, well, with that, that's all I've got for you today. We have some time for questions, and if you think of something later, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly to discuss your agentic AI projects. But for now, you still have me for whatever duration of time you're willing to stay here and hang
Hang
out with
out.
me. I'd love to answer
Well,
your questions.
yeah, thanks, Maya. I guess if folks are not using the Q&A button, you can use the chat button if there's just the everyone chat since there's not. But any questions come to mind? And while you've got an expert here in agent-to-agent communications, let's definitely take advantage of that if we can. But Maya, this was a great presentation, by the way. I learned a lot along the way. And I want to commend the work that you're doing and the work that Ping Identity is doing in this topic because a lot of people talk about agentic AI and AI as being a little bit of the Wild West, but it's very good to know that companies have our backs as we go to try to stay up with where the market is. I mean, this is moving very fast. Agentic commerce is moving very fast, but if
It
people
is.
want to stay ahead of this market, they've got to use the tools and the platforms and the experts
Yeah.
in order to make it happen. So
So I've
I know I,
scrolled.
I learned a ton.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I've scrolled back up in the chat to kind of the pre-presentation questions that I got from Anil, and I'd love to address these to
Yeah, we've
start
got
with.
two questions that just came in. So why don't you take Neil's question and then we'll go to David and then Keith.
Fantastic. So the very first question that we saw hit the chat before the presentation even started is how much is data safe in an agentic environment? And the answer is that depends on your guardrails, right? So fundamentally, if you are allowing agents perpetual access, so if you're granting them access and then not revoking it and just allowing them to maintain access for an extended duration of time, the answer is probably not very. The agent's number one goal is to get from point A to point Z as quickly and efficiently as possible. And if that means doing things that you as a human would realize are not ethical or not, proper protocol, the agent does not care about those things. It cares about moving fast. And so if the path to move fast but make choices that are going to compromise privacy or security is available, it's going to take that choice. So your goal as an organization must be to ensure that you are very, very tightly guarding what agents can see, what agents can do, and for how long and on behalf of whom. And that you are granting them, the least privilege access. You are granting them access just in time. You are looking at ephemeral access, and you are always, always, always looking for that human in the loop approval. And you have to be able to sort of stamp every stamp on that audit log in order to make sure that data is properly safe and secure. There have definitely been instances, not to name any names, and I'm going to be very vague here, but there have been instances of organizations deploying agentic solutions. That often coming from, their digital experience side or their product side, and security being not fully thought through, and it ending in some very unfortunate results from a financial standpoint for organizations. And the way to avoid this is to ensure that you get those security guardrails in place before you let those agents loose inside of your digital properties. Your second question that you had, Anil, I'm a little bit less equipped to answer, maybe. The question is, how does agentic loyalty contribute to a sustainable environment? If you're talking about sustainability from like an environmental perspective, I think that I am not equipped to tell your organization where you draw that line. I think that AI has functional uses where it can be a net good for society. I also think AI has wasteful uses where it is mostly an environmental drain. Um, I am not in a position to tell you where that line is for you or for your organization, but I encourage you to continue looking into that because that's definitely an area I'm following closely, but I'm not going to share my personal opinions as I'm, here representing my company.
Thanks, Maya. We have two questions in the Q&A right now. David Contreras asks, it's still unclear to me how you could apply these security measures, especially recognizing AI agents.
Sure. So, from the point of recognizing AI agents, we've got a really cool new capability hitting the market in over the course of the next couple of months, where it is actually doing agent detection, and it is looking at the markers that we would look at for traditional bot detection, as well as certain other things, signatures that are present in the kind of the major agents that are out there and the types of agents that are generally used. That is still imperfect, but I have seen this thing in play and it will spot a computer using agent even when that agent has been told to act like a human being. So it is still a work in progress, but we do have a solution coming out for that very, very soon. So I encourage you to reach out to us and we can demo this for you and you can see kind of how it works and get a little bit more in depth as to how this is going to function.
Thank you. Next question from Keith. How can Ping integrate with Microsoft Entra ID when connecting to Copilot agents?
Okay, so from a technical perspective, we are pretty vendor neutral where we can integrate with pretty much anybody. I would have to see your entire diagram of kind of the way it is architected and then be able to, with the assistance of my sales engineers, talk you through how the integrations would be built. I know it is possible, but I would suggest that you reach out for a one-on-one conversation so that you can get a better idea of how that would work.
Great. And we will in our follow-up, Maya, are you okay if we share your contact details in terms of like email if somebody wants to reach out to you with a question?
Yeah, share mine and then share Shasta's as well.
Okay, great. We will certainly do that. Um, and Keith asked, are you willing to share a downloadable copy of the PowerPoint presentation that you shared today?
I'm able to send a PDF version if you
Okay.
like. I'll send it to our group email chain if that works for you, Peter and
Yeah.
Jess, and then you can disseminate that out.
Okay, when we do our follow-ups, we'll put a downloadable link to the PDF version, but people will
Absolutely.
also have this webinar on demand as well. Uh, and Keith asked to rephrase the question, what value will I get by using Ping with that Copilot agent process rather than only using Entra ID? I'm not sure. That again may need a longer answer, Maya.
Yeah, it's not something that I can answer on a webinar just kind of off the cuff. I would have to see what the environment looks like. So I think that that is something that you might want to reach out for a conversation with somebody in the engineering org.
Great. Excellent. Well, those are the kind of conversations that are great following up a webinar.
Yeah, for sure. And I encourage you to do so, right? The space is moving so, so fast and everybody's got their hats in the ring, right? And everybody is sort of betting on where it's going and what is going to happen next. And we are really trying to predict what the needs of the market are going to be, and so is everybody else, right?
Yep. All right, let's give a huge round of applause, a virtual applause to Maya for an awesome presentation today. Maya, any final words, any parting thoughts before we wrap up here?
If I can leave you with just one singular sentence, delegate, don't impersonate. If you forget everything else you heard here today, remember that one. It's incredibly important.
Delegate, don't impersonate. Oh
hmm
my, that's a good one. Short and sweet.
I figure if it's really, really short, it might stick in people's memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's definitely left an impression with me, and I hope it has with our attendees today as well. Maya, excellent work. I want to thank you. I want to thank Ping Identity. Thank everybody who tuned in from around the world. And again, we will be following up with the recording and the presentation via email. And thanks again, Maya. Excellent work today.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Stay
Thank
warm.
you. Yep. Bye bye.